quick roll call.
Grady Bonzo. Here. Dennis Sneeden.
Here.
Matt McKenzie.
Here.
Mary Ellen Kumra.
Here.
Wally Henson.
Here. Okay. Any public comment?
No.
Okay. We'll skip 3 until Bill gets here, so we'll move on to number 4. Site plan on 811 East Highway 24.
Oh. So, we did a site plan review here not too long ago. Well, I guess it's been a while ago now.
Mm-hmm.
This one is different. There is not a proposed RV park. This is going to be a full-on storage unit building. The application appeared to be complete. The proposed project is to develop a 30-foot wide by 300-foot long storage unit building. Those units will be split to where one side of it's 10 foot and the other side is 20 foot. So that's where your 30-foot comes from. There's a business located right there north and kind of attached to the property that is SCR Ranch. He really doesn't operate business out of there very often, it's more just where he stores his equipment, so I don't think it would be unsightly for him. We'll get to my findings. A2, the name and the address of the owner have been identified. Applicant has not agreed to a quote from a contractor at this point, so we're still waiting for a decision on that before we have a contractor decided. And then also the engineer stamp will be required before the permit will be issued for the project to start. A7, the location and details of the screening for dumpsters were left out of the site plan for the design. Location will be figured out for ease of access for the trash company to pick up. A14, the applicant was instructed that they did not have to provide the zoning of the neighboring properties if they were unsure. So I would provide them to the county for them in my report, which is what Josh has pulled up for you there. A15 and 16, no traffic study was required due to there already being a large entrance and exit from the structure that was from the previously developed on that property, which was a hotel. Get to B, that project is not proposed to be located in the downtown mixed-use district. C, 6, and D, there is no pedestrian access on the surrounding properties. C6D, there is no perimeter public sidewalk to connect pedestrian access to. C6E, the building will be for exterior access. Good thing this is already typed up for you, huh?
Yes.
There will be no windows because it is a storage unit building, obviously. You don't want to have windows going to people's stuff for their security. And then C9E, there is no portion of that property that is abutting a residential district. So based on my findings, it appears to be complete with the exception of those few things.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Is there gonna be like an office there at all, like, or is it only storage units?
For this, I would ask the property owner, Riley, to get up and answer any questions that you guys may have for him.
Yeah, great.
And Josh, you might want to go ahead to the other map. That's page now because it outlines it a little better.
So are you gonna have any, like an office to check people in and out, do you know what I mean, like, where someone will be there? Or is it all 100% all storage, everything's self-done?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I understand what your question is. Yeah, we wouldn't have an office. It would all be either through our website or through phone call. We have a few units set up ready to go, so if somebody wants one, they can get in, and then when they're ready to go, let them out. So,
Sure. Yeah, that was the thing I was wondering, because without any windows, it would make a difference.
Right.
So, okay, awesome, thank you.
Why don't you just give us a quick rundown of kind of what your vision is here and what you're thinking, and then we'll get into more questions for you.
Sure, sure. So, it doesn't show the building on there, but it would be on kind of the east side of the property. You would almost see where the hotel is, where the sidewalk is, and then kind of about 20 feet over to the right, you can see that, kind of that line in the grass. So it almost go exactly where that would be, and then we'd have room if there's a need for it, and if we get full, we could always potentially further develop the other side of the property. But for now, we just start with that one building going north and south, kind of right on the east edge of the property. Our 10-foot units would be on the east side, and our 20-foot units would be on the west. And that's kind of what we have in mind. From our research, it said it was better to have them run north, buildings run north and south, then you don't have the ice and snow pack on the north side.
Sure.
It's like in the wintertime, causing problems or people getting into their units. So that was one of our main reasons to do that. We didn't have there wouldn't be any units on the end, either on the north, or there wouldn't be access doors from the north or from the south. Those units on the end would be accessed from the east or west to facilitate the easy snow removal and not having any ice problems there. So.
What's your plans for surface finish? Are you going to concrete around them, asphalt around them? What are you going to do there?
Right, we do asphalt millings is my current plan. Here's the topographical map. So the high spot there is kind of where that asphalt is kind of the highest point on there. So I'd probably take that off and eventually have that milled when next time the miller comes into town and use that further. But initially we'd take that off, do the grading, get the pad set up correctly, and then put asphalt millings around, and then use those additional millings whenever the miller's in town, have them milled. So.
Well, like lighting and security and stuff, are you concerned about that or anything?
Keep
Right.
scrolling, Joe. That one actually shows, kind of.
Yeah. So all those circles would be lights for the building. And then we also have a sign up in it'd be the northeast corner of the property. Just a standard 4x8 sign, yeah, we have also a lighting plan in here with the downward pointed lights, so that way we wouldn't be shining lights in anybody's windows or any cars or anything. They'd be pointing downward at the facility. The lights that we're using are often used for dark sky programs where they try to not have too much light pollution. So that's attached to our, I think.
We're getting there.
Sure.
Will it be fenced in at all, or will there be a gate, access gate with a code or anything?
No, we don't have plans for that at that time. If we had break-ins or need for that, we probably would. We do probably plan on putting up security cameras. But yeah, those are the lights. They attach to the side of the building and point downward. So, and slightly out, but they're adjustable in how far they point out. I think it's a 30-watt light, so it's not terrible bright.
You can show that one. That's the proposed signage.
Yeah.
Can you turn your head enough to get
I'm not going to rotate for you.
That's okay. It's nice, actually.
Yeah, it is nice.
There you go. I like it.
Okay.
Which all of that is up to sign code as well, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, further discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion, and there's wording in the packet if somebody wants to get that.
Yeah, I'll see it here. Okay. I move that we approve the site plan review for 811 West Highway 24 as completed by the building official.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Grady, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you, sir. You are free to go, but you can stay if you're interested in the rest of the meeting too, so it's up to you. All right, we'll back up one spot. Mr. Behrman, thanks for making it. We'll give you the floor for sort of your new building review.
Thanks for meeting tonight. I've never been to the planning commission, to be honest with you.
We don't bite.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Nice.
We're supposed to go on that area. So I think I came, I don't know, Ken, when was that? Seems like, yeah, November, let's say, kind of talked to the city about what our plan was for our career tech ed building. Kind of talked to them about all of that. And so the big thing tonight, I think what I needed to do to come to the planning commission, or I was told, is our plans for Cherry Street in front of the high school. So our plan, our big overall plan is to build a new facility west of the high school for our career tech ed programs, which are out in the shed east of the high school now. A long time, if you've been here, you know what I'm talking about. VOAG, industrial arts, art room, some of those types of classes. And so at the top of the paper is kind of just what that would look like. We do own the lots west of the high school. We started several years ago of trying to buy up some of those older homes there and demoing those homes, with the plans probably eventually of just making it into a nicer parking lot. But then over the last couple of years, the plan has evolved into actually building our new facility there. So that's what's at the top. It's not a final drawing. We're still working with GMCN on what that would look like. But it gives you an idea of how that facility was set there. And then at the bottom are just kind of two other mock-ups, drawings, pictures of what it would look directly west of the high school. There's some safety benefits to it as we see it, and I guess what I'm coming to you tonight is to talk about, we'd really like to turn Cherry into a one-way. We've had discussions about coming to you before about that, regardless of the tech building, just for the safety of our kids in front of the high school and traffic flow in front of the high school. So really, I'm not asking you really anything for the tech building. Tonight's discussion is would the city planning commission approve the Cherry Street between 12th and 13th Street becoming a one-way? It would provide angle parking opportunity for us, and probably just creates a better, safe environment for our students in regards to passing between buildings. Something that currently we don't have when they go where they're going now. I always worry kind of about that.
Yeah.
And it'd be a lot better there in how it's kind of mocked up there. So I don't know what information you need from us or me, or what the steps are.
Have you guys had any conversation with the other residents on Cherry right there and what they think?
Well, the only resident, so we own the house right north of the lot as it is now.
You guys have that?
We have that one. That's where we've been for the last several years, putting a rookie teacher in, kind of as an incentive to get them to come here, free housing for a year. So we would demo that one. So then it basically is two houses. My former board president lives on the corner lot, Gary Slough, and I have talked to him, and he's a public supporter, so he doesn't care. He thinks it sounds like a great idea. The owner in the second one has kind of turned over the last couple of years, so I have not talked to them directly. If I need to, I guess I can, so.
Shalon's driveway access is off of 12th Street anyway, so.
Yeah. And honestly, it directly impacts those two residents, but really, people up the street were probably impacted by it potentially too.
Right.
I mean,
Because your direction would be north travel, right?
yeah, I think south to north. I mean, just because it seems like that's the general, for school purposes, the way it flows now. Most people
Yeah.
come in on the south and will drop their kids off in front of the high school, so I think people are used to kind of flow that way. Obviously, during non-school hours, it's a street that works both ways, but, so our proposal would probably be from south to north.
So it wouldn't be one-way except during school hours?
No, it would have to
I think
be
you-
one way also.
Yeah, I think,
That's what.
Yeah, I think it would be
that's what I-
permanent, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, I was confused
Yeah.
there for a minute.
yeah. Plus, honestly, if we turn it into angle parking like they have in the drawings, I think the street is squeezed a little bit.
Sure.
Especially if we do, a popular design now, in those types of construction is to kind of bump out that, you see the concrete, kind of to emphasize, hey, there's a sidewalk here, right? So it is cutting down the width of the street a little bit, in regards to that, so,
We
yeah.
go for busing, will busing be unloading?
No, our plan would not be to have our buses unload there like they do now.
Okay.
And actually, they don't do, we have, like during school, if we drop off kids at the auditorium, we do that now. They flow through the back of the building now. We've gone to where, like for morning drop off, our buses pull in here.
Oh, I see, okay.
Okay.
We've been doing that now for 5 years. Same thing after school, one bus pulls in here, takes them over to West. So we don't have much bus traffic in front of the building now.
And when we talk about one-way on Cherry Street, what distance are we talking, like the whole Cherry Street, or from just the block of the school, or what
So,
are we thinking there?
All we would like is just the block of the school. If
Okay.
the city feels like, if we're doing it, let's make it one way from here to there,
Okay.
that's probably up to the city. Our request would just be the block
From 12 to
to
13.
12 to 13.
Okay.
That's all our request would be, yeah.
That's probably the least disruptive to the rest of the neighbors too, because
Yeah.
you can still get in and out pretty easily with that being a one-way. You can get over to Caldwell quicker.
Yeah, Caldwell's your main artery anyway, probably, for people north of 13th. Most people, I think, would drive Caldwell and then bump over a block.
Yeah.
That type of thing, yeah. Cherry has a few more stop signs as you come up through the curve. If you do choose that route, you got 2 stop signs versus Caldwell, you just flow up and then over.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill?
Any other questions?
None I could think of. Looks like
I know one thing our architect has to work with the city on, I think they're still working on surveying and utilities, like where the utilities at on that street. Is the water main in the center of the street? Is it near the sidewalk? That type of thing. The other thing too, I don't know, Ken, if it needs to come up tonight, our main thing to just kind of keep the project moving forward, is this one-way part. We want to kind of an answer to that, because our design kind of feeds off of that. But I think we're going to need some, as far as the setbacks. I think what you guys have on the books for setbacks, this building exceeds that a little bit. Nick did look at the properties mainly along the south side. If you look at the south of the drawing, that pushes the sidewalk a little bit more so we can get the maximum square footage of the building out of it. I think he went back and just drew a straight line from like where the existing elevator, that addition to the high school is, and said, well, if the city allowed you to do that, even though I think that's 4 feet over the defined setback, and it makes sense for them to do that. And then same thing with these residential properties here, that whole thing is in line with our elevator, and then they actually are pushed out even further than the drawing here would. But that's probably another discussion as far as, are you gonna forgive the setbacks?
Well, what we would do is just,
Variance.
yeah, and just have a variance request.
Okay. I mean, we're not gonna put it on the street, right up against the street, but you can see, I think those are 6-foot squares, so there's still like a 12-foot setback right there on the drawing you have in front of you. There's 2 squares there, there's 6 by 6, kind of showing you that's 6 feet from the sidewalk. But
Well, and that'd be another reason that would be in favor of one-way traffic, is then it wouldn't block the sight triangle.
Yeah, yeah.
For anybody going southbound, because nobody's
Yeah.
going southbound.
Yeah.
Do you know how many parking spaces that will fit if we do that?
I don't, I mean, but it probably actually, and that's another reason why, because we're getting rid of our park that's been used a little
Right.
bit.
Right.
So angle parking does allow us more stalls than what parallel would.
Mhm.
How many, I don't know the exact number on
You're
that,
right.
Grady.
Yeah, but it seemed like it would help.
But it would be more, yeah. And honestly, easier,
Sure.
whether that be students or, there's not a year go by that we
What about-
didn't have some high school kid packing into somebody's car.
What about zoning? Are those lots zoned R1?
They are zoned R1, but being a school, you are allowed to put that pretty much in any zone district.
So we wouldn't have to change the zone. Okay.
Correct. And it is R1. It's in white.
Okay.
It's up on the mountain, Josh got it on there.
Yeah.
The only thing would be just requesting those variances. That'd be
All right.
the only extra step in this process, with them wanting to know more than what we required. As a minimum.
But that's for the building itself.
Yeah.
Other than that, that would do anything with Cherry Street being on that.
And what, I guess I'm just trying to envision this, so with that being a one-way, through traffic can go through there if they want, or is it, are we gonna have like gates, you know, like, I think it's, was it, West School where they have the gates, or whatever?
No, I mean, I don't,
Think of anything like that, or,
I don't think our plan would be to put like
Okay.
the arms that would drop
Right.
back during school or anything like
okay,
that.
so traffic can
I think
go
it's a
through
one way
there.
from 12th and 13th, 24/7.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So the process, do we need to have, does there need to be some public notice before, can we take any action tonight, or does it need to?
Well, it's not really for, I think if you guys would want to recommend this to the city commission to consider it. Or if, actually, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that without knowing first, Matt, as far as, I don't remember any formal process for changing it to, in the code,
Okay.
regarding changing a two-way street to a one-way. What I would envision is having the planning commission make a recommendation to the city commission to consider it, and the city commission, they're the ones that actually would authorize it. Now, whether they would need, I just haven't seen that process include a public hearing.
Okay.
But you bring up a good point, and staff will need to confirm that.
So just to not hold this thing up for another 30 or 60 days, would it make sense if there's agreement to at least make a recommendation to the city commission tonight, and then if there's more steps, then we can take those as you guys figure it out?
Yes.
I don't want to leave here tonight and say, well, we're not going to get back to you for 60 days, Bill, because we only meet once a month, so.
I've got a good plan here, let's,
Well, and, you know, if it can get approved in short order, really the time frame is whether it's for the next school year.
yeah.
Because then it's setting up people's traffic in order to do that, so.
Did moving the junior high over prompt any of this?
I don't know if it, probably not necessarily.
Okay.
Besides increased junior high kids walking across the street, maybe aren't observant, you could argue high school kids aren't very observant. But certainly junior high kids probably aren't either, but as far as prompting were they key to the deciding to, hey, let's build this new building there, the junior high probably didn't factor into that.
So what happens to the current lab or the construction building over there?
So actually it probably becomes our central maintenance hub shop.
Oh, okay.
So, that's the discussion, the board we haven't totally decided, about the early discussion is, our current maintenance building for the district is north of Casey's, kind of across from Hoover's.
Right.
Most of you know that where that's at. So, we would probably kind of move what that facility is used for to this location, and then probably sell off that property, is a discussion. We've also talked about, we own a warehouse building. I don't know how many people know about it. Where's Central at?
Fine, so-
Clark and,
Central.
15th and Clark.
Where's Main Street?
And then,
Right here? Yeah. So this little property here is what we call our warehouse. It's where all of our UPS, FedEx stuff delivered. It's like where just deliveries are made. We could probably move that. Our early discussions are selling off that property, move our drop-off location for warehouse activities there too. So it probably serves those and allows us to get rid of 2 buildings in our district.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All the one-way would be nice all the time, even without the tech building, but what really drove that was, if we can get our constituents to continue on with the bond issue and that kind of stuff, which we'll have a vote in November for all that, for that, so. But the one-way, I think we want.
Yeah, that's a good point, Terry.
The one-way, whether that goes through or not, just for the safety of the kids.
Yeah.
Well, even continuing to use that as a parking lot.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. Even if
Yeah,
we don't end up building a tech ed building, I think we still would like to see it in one way.
yeah.
Yeah,
And actually, that, when I presented to the city commission directly about it, before coming back to you guys to bring it back to them, several of them mentioned that. Well, we think it's a good idea whether you do it or not, right?
I agree.
Yeah, the chief of police agreed with the safety part of it, so.
Yeah.
Just at the beginning here, without the building, the walkway in the middle of the block probably wouldn't make sense, just because there's no receiving end on the west side.
Yeah, but we may be, if we would choose not to build there, and if it fails, we got decisions to make. Are we gonna pump dollars into the existing facility, some of those things. So you're right, would it push to the corner, maybe, but honestly, I think we would probably just invest in a more permanent parking lot where we might build that out. And kind of saying, instead of crossing corners and stuff, going out the front of the high school to that lot would still be a better option. Yeah.
That's probably the normal path the kids are walking anyway.
That's what they're doing anyway. They're gonna take a straight line to the front of the high school. They ain't gonna go back down to the corner and across. Yeah.
And still good habits.
I know. Where's my crossing guard?
But real honest, on building this or restructuring it, do you gotta restructure the whole parking lot? Like, because you know how our streets are kind of like curved, are you gonna have to flatten that out or make that all
For
concrete?
the building?
No, for the street.
I think there will be. I think you would see both sidewalks tore out and probably some regrading go and then come back with new curb and the whole thing. Yeah. And honestly, which on the west side, there's existing residential there we'd have to worry about, but you know, it'd all be new anyway there. We will probably push up into our existing lot a couple of feet to create angle parking, to make the angle parking work.
Okay.
So you'd see both sidewalks tore out and probably that whole part of it redone. Yeah.
So when we're talking one way, just be enough for one vehicle to drive through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there is extra room, that always helps with angle parking and backing in.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be a normal traffic lane of 10 feet or 12 feet.
Yeah, it's
Probably
probably
would be
wider
wider.
than that, yeah.
Okay.
It's not the widest street as it is. Yeah, you know.
Okay, any other questions? Somebody want to make a motion?
Appreciate your time, thank you.
I'll move to recommend the one-way street to the city commission. I'll read one word.
That's just.
Whatever.
I'll second that. All right, moved by Mary Ellen, seconded by Grady to recommend the city commission to change Cherry to a one-way between 12th and 13th. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Number 5, adult entertainment establishments. This is a return from the city commission and a request to review the proposed zoning ordinance change.
Yes,
Yes.
I gave you a lot of information, but I wasn't trying to do it too much. And I thought Jake was going to be here tonight as well. But basically, they had a couple considerations, and rather than take action immediately, they wanted to return it to you. That's probably the big thing. It was an option that was available in the code. They wanted to get your input first before making a decision. They saw a couple issues that were difficult for them to get past. And one of them was definitions that remove the 30% requirement so that it could cause unintended consequences for certain businesses. The conversation kind of mushroomed a little bit as far as would it involve not just the store in question, and not even just Walmart, but even into convenience stores, whether Casey's or anything else, and say that absolutely nothing could be included in that. And so all the gas stations or convenience stores, that's where the discussion went to as far as the city commission went. They also had a concern regarding Walmart as far as wanting to take that on. So they wanted to return it for your consideration regarding that as far as the definitions go. They also had an issue regarding the 1,000-foot distance requirement. Again, that was okay. They talked about the hospital or the pharmacy next to the hospital, those type of things. Would it be affected? On the outside chance of anything described in there would actually end up in the deal regarding the pharmacy. That wasn't a big part of the conversation. It just started getting a lot bigger conversation than staff had expected. So there was an option, I think, that would help the consideration, and that's where Jake was advising and staff in discussion after this was because of that percentage of items within the thing. And it could be any percentage. I found went back to those 12 different codes of the 12 different cities. And it was Coffeyville, I think, either Coffeyville or Winfield, but I think it was Coffeyville, that had a limit of, they had the 10% requirement or 5% requirement. So if it didn't pass, there were certain categories regarding that said if 10% of your items, or if, and then another set of items if it was 5% of your items. So it even went to that small an item. Now, as you can see for the Walmart example, it's never going to reach.
Yeah.
5% of items, it won't even make that difference. And since it really hasn't been noticed by the public or said anything about it before this came because of the other store, I don't know how Walmart got kind of included with all this. But that would be a way out, and then the 1,000-foot distance requirement could stay because you have the percentage. So then
that would take care of it.
Kind of take care of it, so you don't have to change more things.
Right.
So that's an option. Now, the vape time too might end up sitting the store that became the thing already. Might have the same thing as far as 5% of items or 10% of items, whatever percentage you'd want to pick. They may not meet that either, but at least it sets the standard for anything that would follow. And I think you guys have made clear the point regarding what's the community's opinion of how this should occur. So that was the option regarding the zoning ordinance, is really those two items came up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I was just trying to remember back around the discussion around the 30%. I think a lot of that was just trying to take administrative burden out of the
Right.
definitions.
Right.
You know,
Right.
where,
I agree.
you know, Zach or whoever doesn't have to go in and, you know, have them go through
Like-
their books and physically prove that it's this percentage or less, or.
So like
Gotta
Jake
measure.
said to me, it is their responsibility to prove that they don't go over that limit. So it would be up to them to provide all the documentation and all of that stuff.
So really, the administration is on them and not up to you to go in there and.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there's several complaints, then it becomes.
Right, then you have to
whole
follow it,
thing.
right. But at the same time, your burden, it would still be their burden to prove what their volume was, right?
Yeah.
So if we went back to just a percentage, then that's probably the easiest way to go back to the commission. We don't have to revisit the distance thing then. Because I think that was the other thing we were all pretty strong about, is we want a pretty far distance.
Right. Well, and it also kind of leaves out, like mushrooming into other areas.
Yeah.
Like the gas stations or convenience stores with one item that could be considered,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
and it'd be like, okay, hold on. It doesn't meet the criteria, and so it's up to the owner then, and it's leaving. Again, as long as they can prove it's not 5%, even 5% of items.
Yeah.
It's not going to affect too much. And it will make it, I think, and all it would require in adding the definitions is just adding to what you currently have. And staff will have it figured out which section it would go in.
Yeah.
But that would allow an option for the city commission to consider and move forward. Unless they come up with something else that's an issue, but that was the main thing for them.
Well, my opinion is I think we could go back with a percentage recommendation, keep the distance the way it was, and give that to them as the next recommendation.
I agree with that, yeah.
I guess it'd
Makes
be.
sense.
Someone would want to make a motion to do that, and with a percentage that you would feel comfortable with.
Yeah, let's talk about that for
Yeah,
a minute on the
exactly.
percentage. I mean, I think it needs to be fairly low, 5 or 10, probably not more than 10.
Mhm.
Is 5, I guess we can just make the recommendation, city commission can decide what the
They can
actual
decide what they
percentage is,
want.
right?
I believe Mr. Valentine said what they would want to carry was 1% or less than 1% of their inventory, but I'd have to go back to the
So
minutes.
5 would give them plenty of room to operate and still be pretty restrictive, I think. Don't you guys? Yeah.
Think so.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
So it's not more than 5%.
Yeah.
What we're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think we have to worry about that with Walmart either. They won't
I
have to
bet
take
it's
Walmart.
less than 1%.
It's probably less than a half
It
percent.
is, it's probably.
If they're not gonna make any money on it, they're not gonna have it.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so let me see if I can get the words right, and if I need to amend, I can. So I move that we make a recommendation back to the city commission to add a 5%. What do I want to say? 5%.
On the correct second,
Yeah, add a 5% requirement in section 1 in the definitions related to inventory volume.
yeah.
Okay.
And keep the
And keep the current 1,000-foot distance requirement.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Matt, second by Grady. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay.
The second part that, and it wasn't a form, I mean, There was a recommendation regarding the licensing orders, they were kind of packaged together,
Yes.
but the licensing, didn't follow
Everything else.
the same procedure. But the one item that they had as a consideration on the licensing, I gotta get past all the definitions, I really don't. The 14 pages of definitions we can include with that ordinance. The city commission would like the license fee to be reconsidered, as it's out of line with the other license fees required by, that the city requires for various businesses. And I included in your packet all the various code chapters that have various license fees for operating a business. And they range from, $50, $100 to $300 to $250, and then I think the one most recently passed, which was mobile food vending, was $400 for the entire year. So they just wanted a reconsideration, have a recommendation back from you guys regarding that part of the licensing ordinance, regarding the fee. You guys can choose, no, we like the $2,000 fee, you guys can make a decision, whatever you'd like. And they can, once it would go back, it wouldn't require a unanimous vote or anything. But if you would have a recommendation for, $750 or something like that, that'd probably be closer to what all the other license fees are. They thought that was a bit much and might open up the city a little bit of exposure regarding it, so.
I think back to some of the same discussion on distance, we made it high on purpose. And I think also with the thought that we want the city commission to make it, I don't know that we want it to align with everything else. It doesn't, it can be higher, but at the same time, I don't want to take a low recommendation back to the commission. I would rather be high and let them bring it down.
Okay.
I agree with that. Yep, I agree with that, totally. Because, I mean, that's the reasoning behind that, right? I mean,
Right.
We want to.
We're trying to make a path, not a wide path.
Exactly.
So you want to leave it where it is now, what the recommendation is now?
Yeah, I think so, with the emphasis that we're doing it because this is a different situation than some of the other licensing in town. And we want to stress the importance of it, but we also recognize that the city commission can choose to set it where they want to set it. But we feel pretty strongly about it being stiff.
Well, in my opinion, I mean, just looking at these other licenses, I mean, you're talking, there's a difference. I mean, it's talking about alcohol and salvage yard and that kind of stuff, and then now we're talking about, sexual content type stuff. To me, that can go a whole different direction. So I think there's a lot of responsibility with that. So I think we gotta have a higher impact, like you said, Matt. In my opinion, that's my.
I agree with you.
So the consensus of the planning commission is to leave it as that, and the city commission can make their decision whatever
Right.
they choose to do so.
Yeah.
And the reasoning behind that is this, and
Yeah.
I'll put that in the minutes for their recommendation. I think
That got through the city commission's concerns?
that's all the concerns that they had expressed.
Okay. Okay, with that, we'll move on. The next one is vacant building ordinance example for discussion. See, I can't get it all out tonight either.
Because you're salivating over brownies.
So I did actually receive a phone call back finally from Sedgwick, Kansas. He said they implemented this program 2 years ago, and then my first question to him after that was there pushback from the community? He said, no, there hasn't been any pushback, and that's because they haven't actually implemented it at all. So it was like it was a concern we had where we would write it into code and then it would just sit there and nothing would ever be done with it. He did say that they got their code from Emporia, Kansas, so I contacted Emporia, Kansas, and before I finished asking the question, he stopped me talking and said it doesn't work.
Oh, really?
They wrote theirs into code before he got there, but he says it was written too fast, not clean, and way too broad to enforce. So he's actually tried to rewrite it with their city attorney 4 or 5 different times, but the city commission there just keeps shooting it down. He said also that that was the most full he's ever seen any of the meetings get, was the community came in to push back against it. He said another way they try to do things is rental registration, but once again, it's an extra step for something we already do with the nuisance. So, my question is to you guys, do you want me to continue moving forward with creating a vacant building program?
Well, I guess, before I answer that, did he say what they do? If they have any kind of program, or what they do?
They are pretty close to being identical to Urbana's, to where they're required to turn in an application, a set plan with what they're gonna do with it, and then pay a fee every year. They have to renew it, but he said nobody actually pays the fees, so.
That was my concern last time too, is that, you know, they just let it stack up and,
Well, yeah, because they are not
yeah,
invested.
they're not doing anything with it, and then it becomes a lien on the property, and then it goes to a tax sale, and after a certain amount of time, it goes away, and it was a lot of administration for no bang. But at the same time, I don't know that we should just give up because other cities didn't have any luck with it.
That's where I'm at. To me, I feel like, I think it's important, and if this is what we as the planning commission think is important for our community, you know, share that, and then I guess if the community wants to speak differently, then I guess that's up to them.
That might be the best thing that would come out of this, if we could get some community action and get people to come in and actually talk about it. Maybe we could find something that would work. So I would recommend we keep moving forward with this thing and get it to out in front of the community and get some reaction and see what happens.
Yeah, I kind of feel like maybe have an understanding of, we're not trying to tie anybody's hands. This is the reason why, you know, you explain what the purpose of it is. Maybe that's what the biggest problem of that is, you know. But I don't know what people are thinking, but yeah, I'm with you, Matt, on that. That sounds good to me.
Well, and at least see what the examples are for people in their vacant buildings.
All right.
I mean, I can see the response being, well, I own the property. I don't necessarily have to do something with it to own the property, but we would like something done with the property as far as it kept up and maintained and not allowed to deteriorate. So that's what the goal of the program is. It's not necessarily that, and it would be better if it be occupied, but that's,
I think we talked about that last time too. There's lots of buildings that nobody's physically in every day but are well maintained, and we probably wouldn't consider vacant. You know, the owner probably has a use for it. So it's not like we're trying to say everything that doesn't have a person in it is
Right.
automatically you're on the list.
and then that's where, how do you define it, how you identify it becomes important.
Yeah.
So I also sat through a webinar in between our discussions on vacant building programs. Their big thing was make a solid definition between vacant and abandoned.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Taxes, utilities, are they paid, unpaid? Are they just shut off because of non-payments, that kind of stuff. How long does a building sit without utilities before you deem it as vacant or abandoned? So that's all stuff that was made of importance in that. The city that they used examples of was Austin, Minnesota, and they have it defined as an abandoned property if law enforcement receives 2 or more calls of trespassing. So that's something else that could be written into code. They have the fees in here. They put, you want to have enough to motivate them to actually want to do something with the property, but you don't want to have an overabundance of money sitting in an account, because part of that money is meant to help clean up these properties that we get for demos and stuff like that. Instead of it being the community paying for it, it's the vacant building properties that are actually paying to have them tore down. Contact information. And then another thing they had in there was waivers. So not everybody would be required to actually pay the fees. So they would still register the building, but is it listed on the market with a licensed real estate agent? Well, that could be a term that you could actually waive the fees for. Are they working on the house? Has there been permits pulled? That kind of thing. Are they actually working on moving forward? That could be another way you could waive the fees. I mean, that would be up to discussion of what we think would permit waiving the fees for the program. There are requirements, which would be like, if it's a Main Street building, removing the snow, that type of stuff from the sidewalks, junk, the lawn, the trees, building maintenance, all of that would be part of the requirements. So if we waive the fees for some reason and then any of this becomes an issue, then that would actually make them pay the fees at that point. It would take that waiver of fees away from it.
Would the fees be retroactive at all? Like, over time?
They would get more expensive.
Okay.
Every program that I've looked at, that's how they're set up. Some go really extreme to where it's $200 and then every year after that it doubles. So once you hit year 5, you're a little over $3,000 at that point. So that's all. How do you guys feel? What would you guys feel would be an appropriate amount for a fee? Whether it's a set number every year where it's the same 150 every year to do it, or do you want to make it increase every year to where there's a cap after so many years and then it's just that amount every year after that?
And the goal with this, just like what most of the codes in the city code is about, is how are you going to get the behavior to change?
Right.
So what is the behavior that you want? And that's where you want to set the fees, is it going to actually change behavior?
Well, okay, on the flip side of it, I'm a big believer in celebrating the correct behavior. So if someone says they paid the fee, and then they start working on it, would they get a rebate? Because, I mean, it's really true, what gets celebrated gets repeated. And so that could be an incentive to...
I do understand what you're saying, but I don't think it would get a good reaction from the rest of the community for the people that have already been doing this type of stuff. I don't know how they would respond to it.
Well, if they're not paying, if they don't have a vacant or an abandoned building...
I mean the ones that are buying them in the sheriff's auction and actually putting forth the effort to turn them around and make them livable.
Well, they wouldn't be charged a fee then, would they?
At that point, no.
Right.
That would be part of the waiver. So as long as you are actively doing that, you'd get the waiver of fees.
Right.
But if you're not actively doing that, even if you own the property for 2 years, you're still gonna pay the fees for those 2 years until you actually decide.
And then when you decide to do something, you can get a rebate.
For those previous paid? Is that what you're meaning?
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like not a rebate, a refund.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think if you did something like that, it would have to be like at the completion of a project, so it wasn't just like, well, look,
Right.
look,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I cleaned it up a little bit, can I have last year's back? No.
Right, no, I
Yeah, so like
get
the
it,
final, either the building's rehabbed and it's usable or it's gone, one of the things.
right, no, I
I
agree.
can think of, you know, I have property that we tore down right away, but, you know, it would have been nice if I was paying a fee and then I got it all torn down. It would have helped with the demolition cost to have a little of that back. If
Right.
it's kind of like creating a bank account, well, get that money to knock it back down.
That's what I was thinking.
It would incentivize me to knock it
When
down.
people use that as a bank account, you know, well, I'll wait 5 years, I'll just pay my fee, and 5 years, I'll know I'll get it back now, I can put, you know what I'm saying, I don't know.
Maybe.
You know,
But is that a bad thing?
well, it's not a bad thing, but is that something that the city needs to be keeping track of?
More admin.
It is,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, I do agree with you, we do need to reward people for, you know, doing good things, yeah.
because, I mean, everybody's circumstance is gonna be different, and, you know, you've got run the whole gamut from a family tragedy that produces this situation all the way to, I could give a rip about anything in this town situation, you know? And so the don't give a rip end of the spectrum probably won't pay their fees anyway. And then the city would end up, I mean, then it would do the whole tax sale thing. And then, but the people, sincere people, would have an incentive to keep moving forward when they can. I don't know. That's my thinking.
I could see Grady's downside though, thinking through
Mhm.
that a little bit more, that if
Yeah.
I knew that I could bank money for 5 years and then sit on it that long and then use that to tear it down, would that be incentive to not just take action right now and get it gone?
But
I
see,
don't
that
think
would
it would probably
be,
change that for me personally, but I could see
Yeah.
somebody taking advantage of that.
but I mean, how much is the fee gonna be? I mean, how much does it cost to tear something down?
A lot.
That's, right, you're not gonna pay enough fees to do that. But to
Yeah.
tear it, I mean, maybe not, maybe just have it apply to rehab.
Yeah.
Just
Sure.
for an example, $6,500 for 302 West 15th Street and $8,000 for 1615 Center. And I believe 1526 Caldwell was $9,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a rough estimate as to
Sure.
what you're looking at.
Yeah. And so contractor prices, mine doing it myself, I probably had 5,000 in it myself.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's
Sure.
not a cheap DIY
No,
project.
no. That's part of the reason, I mean, why we haven't done 706 Center.
Yeah.
But it's structurally sound, and I mean, that we've shored up the foundation, and basically, it could be really cute. Even has a vintage stove in it that works.
There you go.
It's so cute.
Well, I think these are, it's probably the reason why we need to take more time and talk this thing out a lot more. I mean, we're ways away from having something to put in code, right? A lot of things to think about.
But yeah, there's a lot that we need to actually sit down and break down and figure out what direction we want to go for this to actually work and not be something that we implement into code and end up like Sedgwick to where it just sits there.
Right.
Well, would it be appropriate or wise to survey the community and say, how would you like to you know, like, how do you think our community looks? Would you like to see more of the buildings removed, or are you satisfied with the way our community looks? Word some way like that, and see what kind of results we get back, I think that would be, if we get a response or not, I'm not sure. I don't know what that would look like. I mean, it seems like we're all invested in that, but I don't know what everybody else, if we're gonna spend a lot of time and talk about it, and nobody really gives a hoot, maybe it's not.
We could find some way to
I was gonna
get
say.
a survey to the community,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
whether it's by mail or by electronically. We got a little bit of response regarding the chickens, so,
Hmm.
but you get more response with animals than with.
Yeah.
What animal?
You get more response from animals.
Was the stoplight.
The stoplight on Main, yeah, and we ended up with, what, about 120, 150 responses, something like that?
So, I
So
mean,
maybe that's a good path forward as we figure out a way just to pull the community a little bit. In the meantime, there's probably a few things that came out of what you said, Zach, that we could start trying to figure out. The one that hit me was the definition between vacant and abandoned.
Yes,
That's good.
I think that's a really good place to start.
I agree.
Because I think that's going to be an important distinction.
Yeah.
The Austin, Minnesota example was vacant is no one lives there, but the owner can be found and communicated with. Abandoned is no visible, like, nobody visibly lives there, no owner can be found, you can't get a hold of anybody through mail or open records or anything like that. That's when they consider it abandoned.
I think that's a good start, but I think it probably needs to be expanded, you know? Because you could, in a small town like this, and I don't know what size that town is, but you can generally find out who owns it and get to them, but
They're
whether
a
they
little
do
bit,
anything with it or
they're a
not.
little bit bigger.
We got a lot of people that own property that don't even live.
We do have a lot of
Yeah.
absentee landlords.
Well, and more of it happens as the generations change. You know, as one generation passes, the next generation may end up owning property, and that's part of our issues, or with, actually with one of the ones we just tore down. There was no next generation that ended up, there was no will to,
Right.
and the next generation had no interest in the property, so.
How about letting the fire department practice on it?
I'm sure the neighbors would have objections. I sure wouldn't want them burning the house down next
I
to
think
me.
they outlawed that,
Well-
didn't they?
You would if you saw, you've been
done it.
you have the EPA
Hamilton,
involved
Kansas.
in some of that.
Yep.
You still have to get to the point where the city or the county would actually end up owning the building.
Yeah,
in order
to do that.
They own it now.
Does that give you enough to start working on, Zach?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a PowerPoint like half created. I just got those responses and I was like, well, do I want to finish this PowerPoint for you guys when you decide how to do this? Or do I just want to come talk to you and address a few things and then get direction as to how to go forward with finishing the PowerPoint for you guys?
Yeah, keep going,
Okay.
but no, we're gonna have a lot of tweaks probably.
Well, thank you for putting all your time and effort into it too. I mean, I know it takes a lot of work and, but, you know, at the same time, we don't want to waste your time or anybody else's time, so I think it's good.
I got to look at the vacant buildings anyway, so.
Okay.
Okay, we will move on. Reports, Grady, anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Dennis?
No.
Mary Ellen?
Yes. I just want to thank everyone for being so, like, tolerant, but honestly, this has been the best experience. I've learned a ton. I really feel like the combined wisdom here is amazing, and I think Goodwin's privileged to have each one of you sit at this dais. That's my thing.
And you as well.
Yeah, you too.
And yeah, we're almost there.
All right, Wally, anything to report?
No, I was just gonna make a motion that we not accept her resignation. Any second for that?
Wish we could, but unfortunately, No Missourians.
You can make a recommendation to the city commission though, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's gonna be effective.
I think we're listed.
You guys are the best. I really appreciate it.
You've been a
Appreciate
good
your
member.
support,
I appreciate your input.
friendship, your commitment to Goodland, everything. It means a lot.
Okay, I don't have anything specific. Kent? Zach? Okay, moving on to minutes approval. Everybody have a chance to look through. Let's do April 8th first, so that was a month ago. Any changes, additions, subtractions to those minutes?
Not that, so.
All right, I move we approve the April 8th, 2025 minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Matt, seconded by Mary Ellen. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All right, April 22nd, so that was just the site plan approval. Any changes there? Somebody want to make a motion for that one?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 22nd.
Okay.
Okay, moved by Grady, seconded by Wally. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. A motion to adjourn. You need a brownie?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, so we have brownies.
Second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys.